Talk of the Day on UBC, brought to you by
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Central Points when you deposit, send and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go, MTN.
Echa COVID-19 chijja kugwa. If we get vaccinated now, observe social distancing, wear masks properly, sanitize or wash our hands with soap and water regularly. Together we can defeat this enemy.
What does it mean to be closer together? It's taking the last bus home for a surprise visit. Closer together is strangers finding a connection. It's bringing home something much more than a box. It's the warmth of home, or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we love, because it's those things that bring us close together.
Therefore, understanding this model. Excuse me, lady. Who do you think you are? A queen?
Hey, haven't you heard? Get Airtel Chillax bundles and browse like a queen.
Get Airtel Chillax bundles that do not expire and browse like a queen or king. Dial *175# or use My Airtel app.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Well, the time is now that we act or we perish. Do it for yourself, do it for somebody else. Have a mask on, social distance, carry a sanitizer if you can. Yesterday, I met this interesting RDC. He's called Nyonyintono. He had a mineral water bottle, and before greeting me, I saw him pull up his trouser, remove a small bit of soap, wash his hands. I asked him, but why do you do this? He said, well, I may not trust some sanitizers on market, but at least I trust this soap. So that is how far some people have gone regarding their lives. How are you perfecting the art of ensuring you practice these soaps to the latter? That is something you must think about, because you're not only doing it for yourself, but even the people you live for as you come to town to make ends meet. Felix, before that song, you promised that you will tell us who you dedicate that song to. So, who is that?
What's the name of the song again?
The song I just played, We'll Always Love You.
Yeah, always loved you. My daughter.
Your daughter? Okay.
Tori Malaika Nkunda.
Okay. Priscilla, who would you?
Myself. Yes, but I'll always love myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's just say to newsreel story this lovely morning.
But you have not told us who you dedicate it to.
Felix guessed.
And that would be?
My lovely son.
Okay, all right.
Gavi David Sentongo. I would definitely do that. Well, we have to take a look at our newsroom story. And today, we please, someone just mentioned something, but my director, Kamoga Stephen, behave, please do behave. Well, let's look at our newsroom story today, and we are focusing on that is the proposal by His Excellency to ensure that he adds one more Minister of State. This was yesterday at Kololo ceremonial grounds, where he was meeting the NRM caucus to discuss issues of how best they'll fit on committees of Parliament. Parliament has 21 committees, and the party was looking at who fit where as they were giving in their recommendations to how best. So His Excellency comes up with this proposal, which was overwhelmingly supported by the NRM caucus. If you remember, the ayes have it, and it was done. Remember, still it has to come to the floor of Parliament, and if Parliament passes it, then so be. We shall have the number of 80 ministers from 79. That is putting in mind both cabinet and ministers of states. But one thing we must also first understand, we usually look at representation, and we know in third world countries, coming up with a cabinet is not very easy, because there are other issues that you would consider apart from how this ability to perform, but the other factors that have to play in as well. But just to give us shape to this direction, this discussion, Priscilla, let's begin by understanding what are the roles of ministers. Because I was looking at financial year 2021, and we spent about 1.35 billion Uganda shillings just on cost of administration for such people.
So what's the relationship between cost of administration and the role of the minister?
Because what is it worth it anyway?
Well, Felix Nkunda will tell us. But as we get to look at what the NRM caucus came out to agree with the president, who put forth his request in adding more positions in terms of ministers, we await to see how that is going to be responded to on the parliamentary floor, possibly by the end of this week. But if we are going to go by the constitution, as you have referred to it, there's a section 111 of the 1995 constitution that was later amended in 2005 that gives cabinet consideration to having the president. It has the vice president, it has the prime minister, and then thereafter it has ministers in accordance to a reasonable number as seen fit by the president in the efficient running of the state. So the consideration is efficiency in running the state, that then determines how many ministers that the president would desire to have for a certain term. And now we're talking about the 6th term of his presidency. In the next 5 years, we are looking forward to hearing what is that one extra that they're going to be adding this time round. And then we see its impact on the economy, as you are saying. Now, we get to look at the roles of the cabinet, and we get to see that determining policy and exercising relevant statutory powers and functions within the ambit of his or her portfolio. You also get to look at another role of a cabinet minister, giving policy and political guidance to his or her ministry, and that we have been seeing. You see another role which includes protecting the interests of the president, which is very key, that in every 5 years the president at the helm always has a direction that he wants to take, and always has what he takes as priorities and precedence over others. And so that's the point of the state minister then, is to ensure that they re-echo the interests of the president and of the nation in the ministry, but responsible to parliament in ensuring that the ministry carries out its functions properly either way. We also get to look at another role of cabinet, that would be defending the budget in parliament and answering questions raised about his or her ministry or department by the members of parliament or even the public, which we have been seeing, especially in this the past parliament, that they've had to, most especially during COVID time, they've had to actually have the minister on the floor of parliament to explain to why they might be wanting the supplementary budgets and things like that. You also get to see another role, which would be carrying out any other functions of government as the president may see from time to time to assign the cabinet minister, him or her, among others. So basically, there should be the eyes and the ears. There should be representing the president in what his plans are for the next 5 years in the different ministries, and making sure that his priorities are aired out and are actually activated and implemented.
Well, Felix, recently we saw governments move looking at merging some government agencies, parastatals, to reduce the cost of administration. We have cabinet ministers, we have state ministers, but at the end of the day, it all goes back to one thing. Priscilla has given us the vital roles they play, but it all goes back to one thing, which is a high cost of administration, which we've always been looking at as a country and saying, how best can we reduce this? What is your opinion on this?
Robert, maybe also to add to what my sister said, is for us to take cognizance of the fact that ministers are political heads to start with. So the short and the tall is that they are to politicize, supposed to do politics in terms of whatever they have to do, delegation or what. Taking note that they are representatives of the president in areas that may be technical and definitely also in terms of policy forehead. For example, when you look at the Ministry of Education, it is simply that the minister there will be a reflection of what the head of state would want to do in that department. I don't know, when you go to Ministry of Health, it is simply a representation of the principle and what they intend to do in that. So, by far and large, they are appointees to assist the president in terms of political administration. You talked about the issue of their budgets. Let me tell you the biggest challenge of third world countries is that it does a lot of try and error. Try and error. And the reason why I've had people make comparison about these numbers of ministers, this number is even too small. Honestly speaking, it's still too small, because the things that need a country like Uganda to shift from one place to another must be done by a bigger team because of the challenges that we are faced with. For example, there should be a minister in charge of African affairs, African relations, because most recently now you are trying to promote a country in terms of its relationship with the Pan-African or the African globe. You're trying to have someone help you open up markets away from just East Africa, looking at ECOWAS, SADC, just to mention but a few. That must have someone as a minister in that docket. Okay, you're having today, most recent, you're having, for example, and this is not a new making. You go to other countries. You go to Kenya here. I think they have more than 80 ministers. It is good administration to have valid representation. The only challenge that we have with some of the ministers here is that they are actually not representatives. They are not sound in what they should be representing. I have had people also make statements, you yourself even, you made statements about the cost of administration. You know, again, that is being a victim of being a poor country or a third world country. It is in third world countries where people still have, for example, last week, if you know, the other week, there was an attack on a minister with intention to kill or assassinate him. Now, that will inform why other ministers will need lead cars or escort cars, hence increasing the what? Now, because, and that is only because we are in a third world country where we still grapple with issues like poverty, insecurity. They could be political, they could be social, they could be religious or whatever. Now, where you still have record of high-profile people being killed in a country, that will inform the increase in budget on how someone is supposed. You go to issues of benchmarking, and that's a key aspect of growing countries, that people in places of authority must learn from others in terms of policy, administration, and how matters are executed. That's what increases. For example, you may find that a budget of a Ugandan minister is higher than that of an Australian minister, simply because they do less of benchmarking. They're at implementation level. Yet countries like Uganda are at learning level, if I may put it that way. They have to
continuously move out of the country?
Not even continuously that. They are on try and error level. That let's try UPE after 10 years. But we have already invested greatly. Now we have to go back and revise, but we are losing money in this sense. So the cost is explained very much at the level where a country is, and you're not any different from any other country that falls within. The only thing that I think is a problem today in terms of the cabinet and the ministers is, one, the quality, the intention, and also their vision. And this speaks to a greater problem, that because as a country we lack a common vision, people will not have something to, they will learn wrong, if I may put it that way. That, let's say if we have a common vision in terms of healthcare, it is easier for our ministers or to spend less or to perform well when they know where they are going in terms of healthcare of the country. But it becomes hard because there is no common vision. When we talk about healthcare, that all of us should know that Ugandans' target is by probably 2025 that we have this
mortality.
Exactly, that
that should be good.
Yes. Now, well, once you know that, as I've always said, that you know you want to go to Masaka, you will know that let me go to Busega, then Chengera, then maybe Nsanji, then Budo. But because we lack a visioned, focused approach in terms of ministerial, administrative positions, but they are by far political than administrative, and that's where the problem is. That if the principal wills that now let's drive at speed 4, they will all drive at 4. If the principal wills let's drive at 70, they will all engage the gears. But now that would mean that we are not focusing on a vision, national vision, but rather the principal's vision. That's where we spend a lot.
But
and
even
from the principal's vision,
spending a lot, you also have to look at it in terms of, as there's a cabinet minister, state minister, you have to also look at it in terms of specialization of resource, and that is human resource in particular. You might have the ministry being of agriculture, animal industry and fisheries, but now who's heading them is not really as conversant, as well educated, equipped to run fisheries. And that, so you would want to have someone who is specialized in agriculture, someone who's specialized in animal industry. You have someone specialized in focusing.
But you see, Priscilla, mostly when we look at roles of ministers, every ministry has got a permanent secretary and a technical aspect of that. That look at that, mostly the technical bit of it. That's why you'll find that maybe someone heading a certain ministry may not even have any knowledge like into that field, but because it's a technical team and it's more doing the political bit of it in terms of supervision. But also we must understand that as third world countries, Felix said, sometimes it's not all about ability to deliver. There are other factors. For example, every time the president has come up with cabinet, these issues arise. Regional balance, how have you factored in different regions? Religion. We've already seen our brothers, the Muslims, and say, but we've not gotten much of the cake. So then we still have challenges as third world countries.
But those challenges are going to always be there.
These factors must be put in, not only looking at the quality and capacity of
Robert, let me just say this last thing. It brings me back to the thing I've been saying, and I'll emphasize that. For you to benefit from these humongous numbers, by the way, is if you have a shared vision. It will not matter whether it is Sheikh Kirabo or Nalwoga Priscilla or Munyoro, who is a minister. It won't matter, because whoever will be there will have something to work towards. I think the problem is not just even about regional balance or what, or even, by the way, professionalism, as Priscilla is putting it. I can tell you of ministries where we have very good senior. For example, go to Ministry of Agriculture. You wouldn't doubt the speciality and the professionalism of Honorable Minister, this gentleman from Masaka, Sempija Bamulangachi. He's a seasoned farmer. He has done. You go to education, you have the Mihingos of this world.
The Seninders.
The Seninders of this world. They have been senior at this. Even when you go to Ministry of Health, that has, but the only failing aspect is that where are we pointing everything we are doing? We are scattered. The Ministry of Gender is going this side, Ministry of Works is going the other side, Ministry of what is going. We need to recollect ourselves and as a country to a common vision. Where do we want Uganda to go? Everyone should be working
Is that
towards
covered in our national development plan that they just have to suit?
And I can ask you a question. If you know where the content in the national development plan, and now we are at 3, we are invoking 3, but I want to ask you, tell me a ministry that is aligned to that. You tell me. And this must be reflected in terms of budgetary allocation and execution of the same. Let's go to the issues of local government. We have had most recent how many cities declared?
7.
Tell me, what is the plan for them? And last year they told them there is no money for it.
Because
now, yet they were launched. And then government says we don't have
money.
Why did you launch them? Why did you launch them? What was the intention? Vision. That because people, ministries are staggering.
Political heads.
You're staggering. You're going to Namamve. They're asking you Uganda what Namamve. And what's wrong?
For me, I think also it depends on what is the national direction for that term. You see, we may demand so much, but in terms of priorities. Now, best case example would be maybe the Ministry of Education and Sports. When you look at sports in particular, when you look at the budget that they had been receiving before 2016 was less money, and yet they were actually, you know, bringing in, or sports was actually putting this country, or bearing this country in terms of tourism and carrying its flag on the international scene. Then in 2016, they did increase the budget to 18 billion, which was a very impressive, good stretch of consideration to add money to sports. And we can see that that money has actually given returns in terms of the accolades. Even towards the end of the 5 years, having ended in turmoil of COVID-19, we have still excelled in terms of sports. So when it comes to national priorities, as in accordance to the term that we are referring to, so now the question should come back to what are the national priorities of this term in these next 5 years that have started last month? What do we expect? What are the national plans? So that then we will understand as to why the different ministries are going to respond, the different ministers are going to respond in the way they will respond for these 5 years.
Well, it is constitutional, right, that the president under our constitution has the powers to increase the number of ministers, and that comes with ministries as well, but with consultation from Parliament, and the approval must be done in Parliament. We have it that once the NRM, of course, caucus approves anything, they have the majority in Parliament, and definitely this is most likely to go through. But we wait for the cabinet when it will be finally out. However, we pray and hope that as a country have a shared vision, prioritize ability, and move away from these funny trivial issues of tribe, religion, and all that. When we return, we'll be looking at what is trending in the print media. Thank you for being with us, and please stay on UBC TV.
It's no secret that ICT makes learning easy.
The strides made in our field could not be possible without it.
And now we can watch our favorite show.
My radio is my best friend.
UCC provides an enabling regulatory environment and policy guidance for healthy competition. We also facilitate ease of doing business in the communications sector through licensing, standardization, spectrum management, tariff regulation, rural communication development, and consumer empowerment. An informed consumer is an empowered consumer. UCC supports local content and innovations. Driving the development of a robust communication sector in Uganda is Uganda Communications Commission.
The Teacher Management Information System, TMIS, is one of the innovations the Ministry of Education and Sports has rolled out to have all teachers register online. This is in line with the spirit of the National Teacher Policy to professionalize the teaching profession and the Ministry's effort to collate teacher data in a single database for better teacher management. Join us as we host officials of the Ministry of Education and Sports to discuss the Teacher Management Information System. The show is sponsored by the United Nations Education, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, under the Norwegian Teacher Initiative in collaboration with the Ministry of Education and Sports.
Therefore, understanding this model. Excuse me, lady. Who do you think you are? A queen?
Hey, haven't you heard? Get Airtel Chillax bundles and browse like a queen.
Get Airtel Chillax bundles that do not expire and browse like a queen or king. Dial *175# or use My Airtel app.
Airtel, the smartphone network. What does it mean to be closer together? It's taking the last bus home for a surprise visit. Closer together is strangers finding a connection. It's bringing home something much more than a box. It's the warmth of home, or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we love, because it's those things that bring us close together.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
It is a bright Tuesday morning, and I hope you're ready, up and shining as you watch Good Morning Uganda on UBC TV, getting ready to access your workplace. But also remember, us various social media platforms are very active. All updates on our Twitter, you'll get that also on our YouTube channel, that is UBC Television Uganda. You can still forward, rewind, get to any point you missed in this program. You can still catch up with us, and also don't forget our Facebook page. We're also streaming and coming to you live. It's time we look at some of the papers, and I'm holding the New Vision while my colleague has the Daily Monitor. A very big headline, that's on the front page of the New Vision. Cabinet Museveni to appoint 80 ministers. Vice President, Prime Minister expected to be named today. Okay, still in the New Vision. Government advises on fees as teachers demand more vaccination centers. That is on the top of the paper. There, what government is advising on fees, an issue many parents were raising. And still in the New Vision, we look at 4 more quizzed over General Katumba shooting. And hospitals receive more oxygen units. Then passengers stranded as buses hike fares. Also still in the New Vision, they give you police ready to release Kagezi and Kawesi murder reports. Why now? Well, details in the New Vision.
Daily Monitor, cabinet list leaks. Okay. And new faces we see for the vice president. This is for New Monitor.
Monitor, please.
This is not our own. But for the Daily Monitor, they come out to say that what was leaked to them, we shall have the Vice President as Lucy Nachobe, Premier Defense, Ruth Nankabiwa, Premier Defense, Kasule Lumumba, Foreign Affairs, Adonia Yebare, Local Government, Agnes Atima Pia, Minister of Finance, there, Ramadan Gobi. New faces. Margaret for Trade, Mohanga, Gender, Jessica Lupo, Education, retained. Under retained you have Janet Museveni. Old faces are primed to be moved. Chief Whip Frank Tumwebaze, General Duties Matia Kasaijan, the Minister of Kampala, Judith Nabakova. Okay, retained NRM Secretary General Rahana Rugunda, Betty Among Unknown, Tourism Evelyn, Thomas Tayewa. Also pending deployment, David Bahati and Amama Mbabazi. Well, of course, judiciary also shuts down courts and mad dash to the bus park. Now, Kumam King polls fail there. And in Prosper, can the 11th Parliament revive economy? And also looking at a couple of tenders. there in the papers. Now, inside the papers, see Church of Uganda appeals for at least 60 billion to salvage church house, and Museveni assures country on security. Now, from the archives, a photo here of General Tito Okello Lutwa exchange peace agreement document with NRM's Yoweri Museveni. That is in Nairobi. And today in history, US withdraws troops from Vietnam. That was in 1969. And of course, also, we're looking at ANC co-founder Semi dies.
In the New Vision, we look at a summary of COVID-19 where confirmed cases, we have 52,935. New deaths stand at 2. Then total death, that is 383. That is according to Uganda. Now there is a picture there where we see students heading back home. Pupils at Usafi Tax Park in Kampala going home yesterday after the president closed schools due to COVID-19 pandemic. Today in history, we look at it is on this date, the 8th of June, but the year 1998, when Chichwamba students were burnt to death. Still on this very date, the year 1968, James Ali Ray arrested. And know your member of parliament. Who have they brought? Isaac Katenya, that is MP Bulambuli County, and we have Gerard Nangoli, that is MP Elgin North. Still, they give you more regarding how the global statistics standing in COVID-19, but please ensure you're not part of these statistics by perfecting the SOPs.
Now in sports, Museveni, sports headed for online, and Altana League kids bear through conditioning tests there, and of course 45 days to go. That is Cheplengat books ticket to Olympics, and French Open youngest quarter finalist also, that is to add just when he's 17. Now a Special Olympic embark on journey to Germany, and COVID-19 swim league set aside, but also Viekwaso netball chief demands equal funding with football. And Graph breaks through, age there 17, and of course Group D, 3 Lions, great expectations there as well.
In the New Vision Sport, well, it is all about former Cranes captain Dennis Onyango. A headline there, Onyango is unmatched. Former Ugandan captain is named #1 in South Africa, and more so regarding international friendly, that is Uganda versus South Africa, and that is at Orlando Stadium in Soweto. And still more regarding sports, Ruben will be here to give you the details on that. Felix, in the Bible, there's where Jesus told the disciples that I'm going to prepare a room for you. In my Father's house, there are many places. If it wasn't so, I wouldn't have told you. Now, when I looked at that list, if to go by, I saw Thomas Tayewa. That reminded me of that when Jesus was saying, in my Father's house, there are many places. If you miss one, you can still get the other.
I think you're quoting a wrong scripture, my brother. It should remind you of someone that said that they told before the cock crows, how many times?
You deny.
So
that is Peter.
No. Iscariot. Before the cock crows 3 times, by this time tomorrow, you would have denied me. So Tayewa. But anyway, Priscilla is here also to help us maneuver ourselves into the heart of Kampala, to help us also find a place where we could kindly start our work. Priscilla, good morning.
Felix Nkunda once again.
How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
So where are we coming from and where are we going?
Well, today I think I will take a look at some of those routes that have schools and see what the traffic is possibly going to be looking like this morning, given the fact that schools were given up to the 10th of June to be able to close, wrap up business, and students can move back to their original localities. And that is going to be a tough one, as we have been having this conversation earlier on in the morning, given how yesterday was, especially on main routes that bring in traffic and the traffic out of Kampala. As a metropolitan region, we got to see that there was a lot of challenges in terms of transport. One, limitation in the vehicles, given the new stringent restriction of vehicles that must carry less, at least half a number of what they originally should be carrying. Also private cars, as was stated from the presidential special address on COVID-19, that instead of the regular number that they have been choosing to carry, they now get to move with only 3 people in a private vehicle, and that is inclusive of the driver. Now that is a serious challenge. Imagine a parent who has about 5 children in the same school. Are they going to be making 2 trips to be able to pick up the 5 children? And what is the cost of those trips in terms of time and also money? So those are some of the challenges in there. But we get to see some of these routes here this morning, where you have Ministry of Education and Sports having a clear route. You have around Nema House. This is on Ginger Road. We don't have so much traffic that is appearing on the block this morning. We also get to see the rest of Ginger Road into Kampala Road. There's not any much traffic that is being picked up today, and that is possibly simply because people have already started to adhere to the new normal. Traffic jam, of course, has been largely increased by the fact that we were having commuter schools, and these are day scholars who were going back home in the evening and coming to school in the morning, and those were influencing traffic. If you do remember 2020, it was so sweet to be on the road, because in 10 minutes you would move from Entebbe Road to maybe Nakasero in just 10 minutes, and that started to change when they opened up schools. But now we do have that going back, and so you can easily move from one end to another in less time than has been before, because of the schools being closed for the next 42 days. Now, as we look at traffic, you get to see even Kampala Road past Uganda Police Post. There's not any traffic that we are seeing there. You do have other areas that you would be expecting some jam building up there, and that would be around Centenary Bank head office. You would be seeing some traffic building up on City Square in Kampala Road, but again, also it looks to be a clear street. So I believe people are starting to adhere to the way of movement for the next 42 days. But speaking of which, while all this happens, transport is moved on wheels, and you must take care of your wheels. So from us to you, just a tip: please do ensure that you take care of your tires, because they are an important part of your vehicle as it's in motion to take you to wherever it is that you need to go. The way you take care of your body and bathe it, yes, it's the way you need to also put into consideration taking good care of your tire. Now, one of the things that I have been seeing motorists do is buying cars, and then they get to change the tires, buy new tires for the vehicle, but you end up buying a different size of tires for the kind of vehicle that you have. And some do it because it's pompous, so that the car might be lifted, would be another person's reasoning. Another person just wants to make the car look a little bit, you know, more cooler and sleeker, especially for saloon cars. When you give it a bigger tire size, it makes the car look, you know, more appealing to the eye of whoever else is viewing it. And so people end up using or misusing tire sizes in regards to the type of vehicle that you are driving. Now, there's also people who don't know that there's actually different sizes of tires. So how can you know your tire size? It's very simple. You can get to the tire. On the sidewall of your tire, there is a number in there, and one of those numbers will tell you the size of your tire. But then it could not be the size of the vehicle. The tire size may not be that of the vehicle that you are driving. So the best way to get the right tire size for the right vehicle that you are driving currently is by going to the driver's door. When you open it, just down below towards the end of the door, there is some details there on the metallic. There are some digits that are written there, and one of them is the tire size. Now that tire size will guide you in buying the right tires for your vehicle. That way you can actually be able to have a good maintenance overall generally, because one thing will affect the rest of the vehicle. So that is a tire tip that you want to consider this week of June. But that's all we have for you on traffic. Now, because of traffic, we get to have vehicles on the road, and some vehicles in Uganda are petrol consuming vehicles, others are diesel consuming vehicles. Most especially for diesel vehicles, they do tend to emit gases into the atmosphere, into the environment, that end up being dangerous for inhaling and for livelihood. We were talking about the ecosystem yesterday, and Molin was explaining to us how it is necessary that we can all coexist together in the most natural state as had originally created. Good morning to you, Molin.
When we talked about the ecosystem yesterday, we still relate it to what we are doing each and every day. And driving cars is, you know, it's a good thing where you drive yourself around, but also there is a side effect to that because it does really give out gases into the atmosphere. And one we fear most is carbon dioxide.
All right. But you know, at least for Uganda, we are still gifted that we have a natural filtering system in the air, in the atmosphere. We still do have that wind, and because we still have some trees within the cities or the different towns or the different parts of the country, you do have that natural filtration. But what happens in the case that that is also done away with?
Yeah, because that is challenging, because we look at forests as one of the sinks of carbon dioxide. So these are the trees help us tap some of that carbon dioxide that goes into the atmosphere, and also our oceans that are surrounding us also tap some of that carbon dioxide. But now look at a scenario where we have most of these trees being cut down. And the people cutting down these trees actually are probably not aware how dangerous this is. Even a single tree like this that would have trapped a lot of carbon dioxide to a bigger percentage, you cut it down. And it's not just that, because even then, when you cut down these trees, even that the composition of carbon that was in that tree is again released into the atmosphere.
Okay.
So that becomes challenging.
Do explain to us the whole theory that the tree gives out oxygen and breathes in carbon dioxide.
The theory of how trees are actually supposed to...
And we breathe in oxygen, we give out carbon dioxide.
Yes, yes. For them, they actually, for their breathing in that case, they take in carbon dioxide.
They take in carbon dioxide,
Yeah, because that is now... look at a scenario where we are producing the carbon dioxide even through all these processes, industries, burning of fossil fuels, that is our cars using oil and whatever. But now we do have trees that need it. So that is supposed to create a balance. But now we are actually eliminating that kind of balance.
Which would cause the ecosystem that you have been talking about.
Yes, because that, when we're talking about restoring the ecosystem, we want to maintain that balance. But one slight reduction in one of the equations, like you remember from our chemistry, just when the balance is not right, the equation won't be right. So it has to be the right proportion. Yes. So taking away from the trees, the forest covers that we have, also creates a big gap in terms of the concentration of carbon dioxide that is going into the atmosphere.
Then it would cause me to actually think outside the box and ask myself, for whoever minister is in charge of industries in our country, why don't they put a very stringent consideration that for every industrial park, industrial area, there should be a lot of forestation that is done around this particular region? Yes, and that's why we advocate for going green, really, for all these industries. If you are starting up, how are they also regulating the fact that, yes, they're producing this, but are they doing something to keep that green environment around it? And also, we are going sustainable. Are they able to maintain that sustainable process of even creating their products? So that is also a big question that is supposed to be posed to some of these ministries and also to individual industries. All right, well, National Water and Sewage Corporation is turning their waste into biogas that is then reusable in the community. So that would be a good consideration for other industries to be able to pick up the same, especially those who emit both into the air and into the soil or the water for that matter. But these are conversations that Molen is here to dive deeper into the impact of carbon dioxide on not just you and me, but on the every existence of the community and the globe with weather and climate. And of course, you also get to know what the weather is going to look like. Is it going to drizzle a little bit, or is it going to be sunny all day long? She's going to be giving you those details. I leave you with Molen.
Yes, thank you very much, Priscilla. And when we are talking about some of this composition into the atmosphere, I want to look at mostly the statistics. The numbers do tell a lot on what we're doing. Now, we got a report just yesterday from NOAA that is showing the concentration of carbon dioxide across the globe. And when we take a closer look at what the global carbon dioxide scale is, and that was only for 2011 and 2012. You can see the map starts as just a plain blue, but as the concentrations increase per month, you will start to see where it is getting more colors up to the extreme end where there is red. Now take a look at Eastern Asia. This is where we have countries like China, Japan. Now it's no wonder that the carbon dioxide levels are actually high there. They have a lot of industrial processes, so that explains the kind of concentration that keeps going. Now that is at the start of 2012. Look at also northeastern part of North America, also starting to build up with the carbon dioxide levels. This is where we also have much of the industrial levels. Now at the same time, look how Eastern Asia is actually looking like in terms of numbers. Now that is like 2.3% increase in carbon dioxide, and that is what is happening especially for these countries that have had more concentration of carbon dioxide. And much of the sources that we have actually from these areas, we look at industrial processes. China is leading in most of these processes, so it's no wonder they are polluting most and they have much of that carbon dioxide level increasing. Now we also had, what Noah gave us yesterday was a look at the recent 5 years in terms of how the carbon dioxide statistics actually are across the globe. Now you look at an increasing trend where we do have, starting from 2016, we see the numbers are actually within 400, that is parts per million, how the measurements of carbon dioxide are done. Now when you look at the red line, those are like the mean levels averaged to how much carbon dioxide is emitted per year. Also the black line now goes to show you monthly, the mean monthly concentrations across the globe. Now look at that trend, it's all increasing. Look at what we have so far, because now that goes up to May 2021. What we have so far across May, the numbers are actually shooting. Now imagine what we will have in the next 5 years, 10 years. And just last weekend, the UN launched a UN decade on restoring the ecosystem. And this is also aimed at restoring the carbon dioxide balance across the globe. Now this actually takes us more to the baseline. That was 1960. This is also on an average level. But now this is combined with some of the data that is coming from scripts, that is oceanography, from also collaboration with NOAA. This is what they gave us yesterday. Looking at parts per million, that is the measurement for carbon dioxide. It is still an increasing trend. So the statistics are actually showing us how these temperatures, how the carbon dioxide levels are increasing within the atmosphere. Now, when we tell people, please, do plant more trees, and we still tell people, look, having this forest cover is what will actually help sink in this carbon dioxide. It is not a joke. The numbers are showing us this increasing trend, and this is supposed to be worrying actually, because if you look at what we have done as mostly developing countries, we don't produce most of these gases into the atmosphere. We don't have a lot of industrial processes. Like the burning of coal, using coal. Mostly I think the countries that are using coal, we look at China, the US, but I'm glad recently with President Biden was talking about when he joined again the Paris Agreement, where the previous president had actually partied out. He insisted on banning the use of coal within the US, and also some of the countries that have taken it on, like Russia, trying to also avoid this. China also picking up on that is a good sign. But we still have these levels rising. Where can we look at that taking us in 10 years from now? That is over a decade. So when we talk about restoration of our ecosystem, we need to look at these numbers and be aware that it is true the climate is changing, but this is all due to human activities. At least 95% of what is happening across the world is actually related to the human activities that we have on a daily. Now, I will take you back to what we have today over our satellites. You can see it's a very clear day across Uganda. We are starting off with mostly sunny conditions. I can tell you much of the country right now is dealing with sunny conditions. Now, the clouds are starting to develop, but that is to mostly parts of Mbale, that is Mount Elgin, but the rest of the country, you can see mostly a very clear day with only sunny conditions. There will be intervals of cloudy conditions. And what is interesting actually this morning is the temperatures are actually low. You look at the lows in 20s, 21. Actually, I think the lowest we have is 20 across southwestern Uganda, that is Kabale, Kisoro, and also taking in Kampala. But also interesting, across the Karamoja region, we do have those strong winds coming in. Though it is a sunny morning, but temperatures are still low, close to 25 and 26. Now, compared to the last couple of days, we've had temperatures go up to 29. It's interesting how we're seeing these numbers go down in terms of temperatures, and you can expect that chilly morning as you start off the day, but later in the afternoon temperatures will be picking up, and we'll also be giving you our forecast for today in terms of which weather you can expect across different parts of the country. But we do have mostly sunny conditions, that is across eastern parts of the country, Soroti, Katakwi, Amuri and Kumi. Look at numbers going up to 23. That's quite a chilly morning over there, and in relation to what we've had previously, about 26 and 27. Now, Mount Elgin Highlands, where we have Mbale, Bududa, that is where the clouds are starting to develop. We do expect some rain to come in through as the morning goes on, but we are expecting mostly intervals of sunny and cloudy conditions. Temperatures at 21, that is also a cold morning over there. And we also look at the western side of Lake Victoria Basin, where we are forecasting mostly a mix of clouds and sunshine. Very cold morning starting off at 20. We do expect temperatures to rise up as the day goes on. And also for the central part of Lake Victoria Basin, this is where we have Kampala, Mukono, Buyukwe, Entebbe, Wakiso. We do have a mix of clouds and sunshine as well, with 20 degrees Celsius. You can't complain. It's really a chilly, pleasant morning to start with, the kind of weather that I actually like. I don't know about you. Yes, we do have also southwestern Uganda, that is where we have Mbarara, Bushenyi, Rubirizi and Ibanda. We're expecting mostly a sunny morning, but the good news is that that sun won't be increasing temperatures. We are going to be at 22 degrees, still quite a pleasant morning as well. Now, Ruwero, Woblenzi, and Nakaseke, we do have that sunny forecast for you this morning, but also temperatures are really low. We are going up to 23 degrees Celsius over there. Now, that is quite interesting. Usually this area has temperatures going really within 25, but we're seeing that cold wave that is coming in, especially due to the winds that are coming in from the Indian Ocean. Now, they move all the way from the Indian Ocean and carrying with them just cold conditions towards the country, and that is actually responsible for that cold feel that we have today morning. And also temperatures will be shooting in later in the day, but still it won't be mostly above 30. Well, thank you very much for being with us. My name is Molin Kenyana. Be sure to catch our weather and nature segments every morning here in Good Morning Uganda. We do have Good Morning Uganda agenda coming up. Robert will be taking you through. And also you can follow us with the conversations on Twitter. And also we are streaming live on our YouTube channel. Thank you very much and have a good morning.
Live from UBC Studios in Kampala. This is Good Morning Uganda.
Pick of the day on UBC, brought to you by
was brought to you by...
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Central Points when you deposit, send and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go, MTN.
What does it mean to be closer together? It's taking the last bus home for a surprise visit. Closer together is strangers finding a connection. It's bringing home something much more than a box. It's the warmth of home, or the beginning of something new. There's magic in sharing the things that we learn, because it's those things that bring us close together.
Therefore, understanding this model. Excuse me, lady. Who do you think you are? A queen?
Haven't you heard? Get Airtel Chillax bundles and browse like a queen.
Get Airtel Chillax bundles that do not expire and browse like a queen or king. Dial *175# or use My Airtel app.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
The Teacher Management Information System, TMIS, is one of the innovations the Ministry of Education and Sports has rolled out to have all teachers register online. This is in line with the spirit of the National Teacher Policy to professionalize the teaching profession and the Ministry's effort to collate teacher data in a single database for better teacher management. Join us as we host officials of the Ministry of Education and Sports to discuss the Teacher Management Information System. The show is sponsored by the United Nations Education Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, under the Norwegian Teacher Initiative in collaboration with the Ministry of Education and Sports.
We've cut and reduced our MTN Momo withdrawal rates. Now you can withdraw mobile money at the lowest rates. You also get MTN Central Points when you deposit, send and withdraw MTN mobile money. Visit our Momo agents countrywide and withdraw mobile money at our reduced rates from 1st May 2021. Everywhere you go, MTN.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
A lovely morning to you, and thank you so much for keeping it on UBC TV or Inspire Uganda. So every day before you start your morning, ensure you do not miss Good Morning Uganda, where we have a heavy breakfast for you in terms of information that is going to shape your day. Once again, I'm Robert Kirabo, and this is Good Morning Uganda Agenda. Today we are going to be looking at enforcement of the SOPs, that is a standard operating procedures. We know we're in the second wave of COVID-19, and there are some measures that were put in place to ensure they guard against the spread of COVID-19. On Sunday, His Excellency addressed the nation and once again came up with about 30 measures that we should follow to ensure we fight the #1 global enemy, COVID-19. And with me in studios, I have, that is the Commissioner of Police in charge of community policing, Afande Anatoli Muleterwa. You're most welcome.
Thank you.
I see you're smart in the uniform and a bit of...
You're equally smart, by the way.
How has the COVID situation been treating you? Of course, for you, you have no restrictions as police.
What do you mean? We have. If I have no restriction, I would not be on a mask. So I have to observe restrictions. They are there. Good morning, Ugandan. Happy being here and happy being hosted by my brother, my own, Robert. Thank you very much, the management of UBC, and in particular, Robert, for always endearing the police to the community through UBC, my brothers, those but they have not seen Felix for a while. I don't know where he is. Then there is Joel. Joel, as if he attempted to contest as an LOC, either LOC1, but he failed.
Ruben.
But please, yes, Lauben. Please, Lauben, come back and work. That is part of life. No shortcut to that. But when coming back, you must abide by the SOPs governing this working conditions as of now. Wishing you the best of this program. We are going to learn a lot and share a lot of our responsibilities.
Afande, let me just begin on a lighter note. As police, how have these new restrictions in any way affected you?
One, we are human beings. Two, we are part of a society. But three, we are challenged amidst being a father, being an in-law, and being an enforcement officer, that there are certain standards for which the community expects of me to be above the ordinary. But sometimes my human weaknesses tend to override some of them. Take an example, that as a policeman, I'm supposed to be an example to the community where I'm serving. And by way of showing off is that when I am doing whatever I'm doing, especially during this period of time, all the SOPs that are put in place must be seen through me to the community, which partly, as an individual, I may not be able to fulfill, but at the same time, even my own police personnel there may not be able to observe them as expected. But we try as much as possible to continuously remind ourselves to ensure that we move together the community and we are seen as a mirror in enforcing these, but when observing them fully.
Talk about being seen as a mirror. His Excellency, after reading out these guidelines, mentioned something regarding police, where he said one of the areas that these measures get frustrated is the corruption in police. Let's begin at that note even before we go to enforcement of these SOPs. What is it that has failed the police force over and over to fight or eliminate corruption? All reports continuously rank you top on agenda. We've seen this in terms of curfew. Remember one time when Parliament, the 10th Parliament, was proposing that even we remove curfew because it has become one of the earnings of police in these operations.
My dear brother, corruption per se is a two-way. That is to say, the giver and the taker are both corrupt. But you see, there is always a tendency for the general public to cry foul as if the police is the most corrupt. Maybe because we do not come out to justify some of the actions. But how does somebody become corrupt? And you, who is trying to entice him in the act, you feel you are not corrupt. Two, police is part and parcel of the community, of a wider society in which the community we serve lives. What is the behavior like of the ordinary people towards each other or towards observations of SOPs? Now, one, in giving the SOPs, His Excellency was able to provide a platform through the mass media to all Ugandans, and it's stipulated, like I've said, over 30 measures. Did he hand any single SOP to the police alone? No. He handed them all to the wananchi. Now, for us as police, our work is to enforce. But now, because there is a tendency of laxity, because there is a tendency of taking things for granted, because there is a tendency of undermining a special authority, because there is a tendency of presuming that it is for them, not for me. So that kind of perception tends to make some Ugandans think that they can beat the system and as such even be able to undermine the system. And those are the very ones who, incidentally, after luring some of our police officers into maybe favoring them to an extent, they believe that that is the whole system and that's how the system must be able to work. But I want to assure you, the perception index of the police state, I mean of some of the people who tend to think that the police is corrupt, depict so. But please try to test some of us. We have a moral ground on which we really stand. We have the reasons why we need to serve our country with a lot of enthusiasm, with a lot of passion, with a lot of desire to reach out to the community. So these issues of corruption can only be dealt with in 3 ways. One, let each of us do his or her role as expected by the law. 2, identify those that you think are corrupt and then hand them over, because there is a mechanism within the police.
That's the standard operator, that is the PSU?
Yes, leave alone, that is one of them. But there are checks and balances. One, if you identify that military is corrupt, even if you don't go to PSU, go to my boss. My immediate supervisor is AIGP Hassan Kasinye. He will call me to book because that is his work, to supervise me. Then you can also not only him, but any person, any senior personnel above me, IGP, DIG. These are the AIGPs. Those are my immediate supervisors. But you see this blanket sweeping, policies, we are not going anywhere. Uganda is ours, Uganda is yours, Uganda is mine. Let's fight together to ensure that whatever you desire, do it in a lawful manner. Then you'll be able to see that whatever you want can be able to be attained.
Well, let's look at some of the measures that His Excellency re-echoed, because most of these were in the first wave. It's just that some have been partially put in some sectors in the second wave. Let's begin with the most well-seen police being put on the spotlight in terms of enforcement. This is the curfew issue, where borders must stop at 6 p.m. Then the rest of us, 9 p.m. is curfew time. Here we've seen staggered way of approach, selective sometimes enforcement. This time around, how are you prepared to enforce this to the latter?
We are prepared as ever. There is no moment we are not prepared. The only thing is that we are challenged by, you see, the access routes in the city sometimes overwhelm our deployment. Let's take an example. You know very well that to enter Kampala, you can access it through various means. But our deployments tend to target main highways. And some of the shortcuts may not really be accessible. And most instances where we get them, we have definitely arrested. You see, what beats me in my understanding, especially for you, the journalists, is that when we arrest and pack these borders, you begin again exaggerate. You go to police, the entire border industry is at the police.
It's more or less a garage or a parking lot.
Yes,
I was looking at Katwe, what is that?
Yes, and these are things. But that said and done, our commitment is very resolute. But you know, we are sometimes beaten by the number of illegal access routes which may be able to enter through Kampala. Take an example. Sometimes even when we are enforcing, we are not enforcing the panyas from industrial area via Namuwongo, then people can access. But borders tend to access there. And then you may find that some of those borders have entered Kampala and you think we are not enforcing. But in areas where we are, and where we have been supported by our sister agencies, we are very resolute in ensuring that we are doing this. But I need to remind our listeners, especially the message that His Excellency gave. He said, it is not the work of law enforcers only, but it is everybody's responsibility. And that's why he even called upon the arcade owners, even you people here of UBC, that you must be very vigilant. Whereas we are alert, you must be very vigilant in ensuring that you step up measures. One, that those who are entering here have the masks on. Two, there is a spacing in between. And 3, you scale down the number of employees. But if you want to say that everywhere you will see the policeman, and because you want to judge our performance on how you are able to access, on how you are able to allow people who are entering your arcade. We are not part and parcel of your employment in your arcade, in your mall, in your supermarket. It is up to you, because at the end of the day, he even gave a time lag. He said, to experiment on the success of our total responsibility, our communal responsibility, I'm giving you a week. So what does that mean? It takes 2 to entangle. Whereas we are there to enforce the law, we need to cooperate with you. Ensure that you support us as we enforce the law.
That was said. Many times you've seen police carry out operations, and you base on one of your fundamental roles, which is detect and prevent crime. We even know committing suicide in the laws of this country is criminal, even if you choose to take your life. So if people are living reckless lives, if people are exposing themselves in harm's way, where then would police be? Because they may have failed to do what they're supposed to do as individuals, but constitutionally, you're mandated.
Yes, it is true. In detection and prevention of crime, you see, maybe it all goes to interpretation. But let me not talk about that key role in isolation. Let me put all together a mandate. Our mandate states that the Uganda Police Force shall protect life and property, enforce law and order, detect and prevent, and cooperate with all security agencies, the population generally, and local leaders in the maintenance of stability and peace of this country. That is our mandate. Whereas we are meant to do that, we must cooperate with you. You must cooperate with us. Just equally, by the way, in the roles, among the roles of the citizenry, in Article 17F, says that every citizen shall, not will, not may, shall cooperate with the lawful agencies in the maintenance of law and order. So meaning we are enjoined. Now, in reference to what you are trying to ask, yes, it is our role. But let me find out, do you have every policeman at your doorsteps?
Even our ratios are very minimal according to what is globally recommended.
Yes, even if it was globally recommended and it is possible, it cannot be enforced that in every homestead there is a policeman. But our ability to detect, our ability to prevent is on information and cooperation with you. Our ability to protect your life, our ability to enforce law is on the basis of a cooperation with you. But you see, it is just like a transcript, crammed. It is the work of the police to do this. Yes, it is our work. But is it possible in ordinary life? By the way, even spiritually, we talk about the Father, Almighty God. But he did not work in isolation. He worked in Trinity. God the Father, God the Spirit, God the Son, and God the Spirit in Trinity. That is the cooperation. But you see, there are these levels of cram work. Let me tell you, there is no life in isolation. Life is all about twinning and understanding. The ordinary life of every citizen cannot stand alone. It can only be meaningful when you are working with a neighbor, when you are working with your people in the house, when you are working with, and that is all. So, whereas it is our work to enforce, but it is also your work, your responsibility to coordinate and cooperate with us.
As you accept to work in tandem with police, as was stated by Anatoli Muletera, when we look at these restrictions aimed at preventing the spread of COVID-19, Afande, the public wants to know how enforcement is going to be carried out beginning with the 10th of this very month for these 42 days in terms of restricting inter-district movements. A colleague was telling me I may working in Kampala, I sleep in Wachiso. So how is, some people don't even know where one district begins from and where the other ends. So in terms of enforcement, we know ignorance of the law is not an exception.
One is that enforcement is not waiting for tennis. Enforcement started, especially one. You know, these measures are gradual. You know, His Excellency gave an opportunity to public transport, especially taxis that overlap districts up to 10th because of taking children, transporting children from schools or institutions of learning back home. But right from the time he gave those instructions, we as police and our sister security agencies, we are enforcing this. For example, the border cyclists are meant to stop by 6, or that is 1800 hours. Then all businesses, including taxis or public transport, by 2100 hours, that is 9 p.m. Then resumption of any operation is after 5:30 a.m. in the morning. So those measures are in place. However, there has been a guidance that what I had, that is to me, I don't know, I'll need to be corrected, is that in areas of Kampala Metropolitan, you know, these places seem to be overlapping each other. So it may be the taxis may operate within that radius of Kampala Metropolitan. When we talk about Kampala Metropolitan, we are referring to the districts of Kampala, the original Kampala, then Wakiso and Mukono. So that is the Kampala Metropolitan area. Now, I will be able to refer to it in my own policing area, because for us in our policing area, when we talk about Kampala Metropolitan, as per each road, I know where Kampala Metropolitan ends.
Please, so for the benefit of our viewers.
Take an example. On Ginger Road, Kampala Metropolitan stops at Namagunga. Namagunga. That is on Mukono. Then when we go to this side of Kayunga, it stops at Sezibwa.
That is the bridge.
The bridge. That is Kampala Metropolitan. Then when we go to Gulu, Gulu Road, it stops at the swamp called Lijalinji. Lijalinji. That is as you enter Bombo Kalule. There is that swamp. Then there is a panya which takes you up to Majije, then up to that side of Gayaza. So around Lijalinji. Then when you go to Mitiana, River Yanja, separating this is Busunju, and then this other side of Wamika. Then when you go to this other side of Mitiana Road, the main Mitiana Road, we go up to the end of Bujuko. Bujuko. The other side of Jeza is Mitiana. Then when you go to this side of Masaka, we go up to Maya. Maya, leaving the other side of there is that where they grow flowers. So that side of flowers is not Kampala Metropolitan. Then the entire Entebbe is part and parcel of Kampala Metropolitan. So that is our description of Kampala Metropolitan according to us in police. So maybe that is what I could presume, that our enforcement, especially in as far as taxis or public transport is concerned, especially taxis, from 10th, shall effectively be done. And we ensure, and please, this is for all of us. You see the problem with us is that whenever we are talking about enforcement, they believe that it is the police that benefits from us. No! Let me tell you, fundamentally, we are doing only one thing, protecting your life. But when you look at the scourge, how it has ravaged the country, it's not only affecting the policemen, it's not only affecting the security officers, it's affecting all of us. So please, let's ensure that these guidelines that have been handed down to us, we all enforce them together so that we stay safe as we require to see this Uganda program.
Well, another part of the restrictions that we want to look at, that will explain, I hope our viewer now you know where the boundaries in which you're supposed to move to avoid being a victim of circumstances. Anatoly has explained that. Let's look at another area where the president was very clear, that is burials and communal gatherings. Of course, places of worship, usually those that they abide by this, but mostly we've seen it very complicated in terms of burials. Weddings, they try to handle this. Even the first wave, when we remember, this is an area that police had challenges. Is it because people are mourning, people are grieving? What happens?
No, you see, one, you see, the biggest problem with us, we need to understand our interpretation of this formal law. You know, the law we are enforcing is a British type, which was borrowed from various countries, because part of it is British, part of it is India, part of it borrowed from whatever. But in the context of African culture, you realize that when a family loses a dear one, it becomes a communal responsibility. It becomes everybody's responsibility to go and grieve with that person. So partly, you realize that making an adjustment between the new concept of the law plus our morals, our kind of cultural ties is where the whatever is not so clear. But that said and done, we need to understand that life is lived once. And life lived once is in a straight line. You mismanage it, and I want to borrow what His Excellency told you,
Yes,
and even the Igbo have a saying that a fly that never heeded to advice followed the dead body, and both were buried in the grave. So, on the issues of why people need to be guided about this whatever, is because, you know, out of that emotional outbreak, people lose their control. And as they lose control, they are able to get to be entwined and the like. So this can easily be a fertile ground for the spread of the disease. So that is where really we need to stick on the guidance to ensure that really we do not in any way, our human weakness does not really break us again to see another barrier taking place in the next few days again. So please, we must know that when a dear one has died, he has died, or she has died. So those of us who are still living, let's try as much as possible to be very cautious about our own life, because after all, some of you who are believing could even be the ones, the next one carrying on the burden of responsibility.
So are you ready to enforce this? And have you had measures? Because in the first wave, this was something that we saw police either chickened, get emotional, but failed to implement the numbers that were required in most of these barriers.
Like I've told you, enforcement, and as you heard, His Excellency, he guided and even directed. He did not guide, he directed. He directed that one, we have structures on which the police must operate with. One is the LOC. You are aware LOCs. Two, we have the PISOs, the GISOs, then our OCs in those areas. Then we have the RDC, because it happens that the RDC is the head of the COVID task force in his districts. Then the DPC. So we are going to use this kind of structure to ensure that we enforce the measures that are put in place. And even then, please, fellow Ugandans, these measures are for our own good. Let's not wait to be coerced. Let's not wait to be forced. Let's not wait to see police and then you begin hurling stones, talking, whatever. These are things that were said in clear white and blue or black, but at the same time for our own good. So let's not wait to have a blame game. The police is doing this, yes, the police is doing that. What are you doing?
Afande, as we leave these measures, one other thing that I want us to really understand that we've seen even in the first wave where enforcement has not been at its game right are issues of bars, entertainment places, where we've seen so much of selective enforcement. Some have alluded to corruption. I cannot testify to that, but well, I also wonder why you'd find that maybe high-end bars are working, high-end disco contexts are working, yet the ordinary ones are totally closed for the layman and they're not earning.
No, you see, let me tell you people, we are very good at looking for where to blame. You see,
no, these are realities.
No, it is true.
Yes.
Wait, I'm coming to that. You see, when you point a finger at me like this, remember the four are pointing at you, meaning there is something that you need to understand why nature does so. Now, let me tell you, these owners of bars or restaurants or whatever, including the drunkards, are very terrible people. One, you realize that some of them even lock themselves inside there. So it becomes very difficult for you to detect. Two, you go and talk to people, and people say, Afande, we have agreed we are going to do this, and you say, okay. After you have talked to them, you see there is a problem of even making policemen. Yes, it is true, some policemen may be morally weak, but it is not a general desire. Please, this is even a real, it beats manners. You see, Kirabo, I get perturbed when even people begin talking. Ha! Kumulodi kuno, police atagaga walola COVID. Ha! Mpoyozi. I am.
Because mufunye.
Bafunye kategori tuwa yingira nawe nofuna. You see, that's the problem with some of you. When people are putting their lives at the edge to serve others, you think it is a benefit. Yes, I may not dispute. It could be individual selection.
Do you want me to point out places? Do you want me to point out places and I can tell you, please?
Yes, you point out. Those are the issues that we want here to correct. But at the same time, you have also failed your own responsibility. Why do you wait for me here and yet you know them? Does it mean that that information you are waiting for me here to say,
it's too massive that I may, even if I'm to report the place, I cannot be. And that you know very well.
No,
this is an area, Agri Anatoly, that you've failed to implement. You only just come up with
we have not failed. We have been challenged by the level of cooperation from people. You see, there are instances when you go and tell people, say, yes, Afande, we are going to close. After a while, you have left, they have opened. Now, how many times, who should police who? That level of consciousness, of understanding, like for example, when you go to church, you want to tell me that it will be the preacher coming even to your bedroom, tell you, please, it is wrong to sin. Once you get a message that it is wrong to sin, let it stick in your mind. But this business of wanting to point fingers, police has failed this, police has failed, are you doing the right things? So that for us, we are there to fail, but for you, are doing the right thing.
If human nature was destined to do the right thing, then we wouldn't have people like you in uniform.
Yes, we are there, guide. We are there to guide.
Don't you think this is a bit demoralizing? If I, for example, go to, I'll give one place that through COVID-19 has been working. That is Murungo in Munyonyo, a place you're well versed with. This is a place where you'll even find a police patrol at distant there, and people are enjoying life to the fullest as if there's no COVID-19.
Now, Robert, one of the the problem with some of you with the stereotype mind is you think that when we talk about maintenance of law and order, our work is to arrest. Arrest is not a prime duty of police. No. It comes in as a means of people failing to adhere to the laws, because our cardinal role is maintenance of land,
and order.
And order. Part of which is talking to people, part of which is guiding people, part of which is disrupting their whatever, but not necessarily arresting. Now, in instances where some of these people go to the excess, yes, then we arrest. So it does not mean that we have not done the enforcement. The enforcement or law maintenance has been done, but the only thing that you want to see people becoming excited, hey, police is working. Hey, just like you always say, we have done the work, but the problem is that you always want to get excited when, hey, that's not law enforcement.
Maybe because that is what usually works as a deterrent, factor. And sometimes people think when we
Now,
hide under the disguise
our
of
paradigm shift in policing is not reactive policing. It is proactive policing. Partnership, problem identification and solving for crime prevention. That is the paradigm shift of policing, and that's the basis why you have invited me here. Not as an arresting officer, but as a community policing officer who needs to talk to people to understand and especially know their role. Who need to talk to people and understand and realize that they are our partners in crime prevention. Because after all, crime does not affect you alone. Crime affects all of us. So why do you look at me alone? Huh? You want this blame game. Now, when we are arresting you there, does it mean that you would have done better than when I talked to you? So please, let's have that mindset, which really takes our responsibility at the core.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Afande Anatoli Muletera. Their core role is not arresting, but they also want you to understand why you should be law-abiding to prevent a occurrence of this. Unfortunately, most of the times when this is done, many Ugandans not heed to the advice. It's only when they listen to the arrest. Afande, let me have your final remarks regarding enforcement of these SOPs, more so in this second wave and the 42 days that the president put in place.
One, thank you very much for inviting me. Remember, COVID is real. Let's stop taking this situation for granted. It is all of us our responsibility to work together. Two, as police, we shall do our work. But I would like to call upon you, if you identify any single police officer who is not doing his expectation or our expectation, please identify such a person and report him to us. Please, I am fed up. I chose to put on this uniform not to be glorified, but to serve my fellow Ugandans, all of you out there. It beats my understanding that every time I go, police is this, please. And you see, one thing which really beats me, those of you who pride yourself to have gone to school, even we in police uniform have gone to school. We have doctors, we have master's holders, we have engineers. This is a blend of professionals. Can we respect each other in this regard? That while we are serving in uniform, we need to serve you, but at the same time, you need to respect us. And three, and most fundamental, we are going to enforce these COVID guidelines, these COVID measures, these COVID directives in partnership with you. It is a communal responsibility for which His Excellency handed over this guidance, not to us only, but we shall play a lead. We shall play a lead, but every person, every Ugandan is a police officer, not in uniform, but a police officer in seeing to it that the stability and continuity of this Uganda is in a more healthy and stable environment. May I wish you the best of luck for God and my country.
Well, for God and my country, Anatoly has focused more on personal responsibility and working in partnership with the police to enforce these SOPs. COVID is real, COVID is around, please not be part of the statistics, perfect the SOPs. They're simple. Social distance, have a mask, sanitize, avoid public gatherings, and of course, let's abide by the new wear restrictions that have come in, like inter-district movement, plus others. God bless you. Have a lovely day. Ruben would come up to the world of sports, and then Jagenda, Good Morning Uganda Extra.
This is Good Morning Uganda.
Prosper with Airtel